mansion haunted by the undead. Another mansion, its foreboding corridors haunted by a mysterious murder. Or a rookie cop on his first day during a virus outbreak caused by a mysterious pharmaceutical corporation. Those were the 90s. Yes, we are getting old. Back when horror games were new, fresh. At that time, horror was mostly limited to movies, but being part of a horror story was a completely different experience. Solving puzzles in the Spencer Mansion wasn't the same as watching Freddy Krueger hunt someone in their dreams. That first zombie slowly turning his head. That's a memory burned into the minds of so many people. There was no real anticipation, because you didn't know what could come rushing at you after walking through each door. Horror in games was scarier because it was unknown. Fixed camera angles hid the horror just around the corner. You could only rely on sound. I hear a zombie nearby. Do I go in? Do I wait for it to appear on screen? Every new room was a tension bomb, a resource puzzle. Should you fight or should you run? Everything felt novel. Zombies, monsters, even dinosaurs. But despite these novelties, many of those games share the same foundation. Fixed cameras, limited resources, and similar gameplay structures. Each had its unique charm, of course, but Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil laid the groundwork for the evolution of the survival horror genre. Yet, among those beloved titles, there's one that truly stood the test of time. A game that continues to spark countless video essays, forum threads, and lore deep dives. A game that fascinated players with its eerie, dreamlike aesthetic all the way back in 1999. A foggy town born from hardware limitations, yet feeling entirely intentional. The enemy of art is the absence of limitations, and within those limitations, Silent Hill breathes creativity. The town itself feels alive, a character in his own right. Every enemy has a reason, every key, every street name, every puzzle has meaning, even when it first seems nonsensical. The game doesn't hold your hand, it trusts you to piece things together. It's open to interpretation, it respects your curiosity. It wasn't designed to give you answers, only more questions. While Barry quips at Giles about being the master of unlocking, Harry questions reality and his sense of self.
So grab some popcorn, or put me on your second monitor, because this is just me trying to figure out a way to talk about Silent Hill.
The term dream logic is used to describe the unpredictable ways dreams unfold, where one moment bleeds into the next without reason or structure. In storytelling, is used to create a sense of surrealism, confusion, and disorientation, all essential to the dreamlike experience that Silent Hill constantly reminds us of, through its foggy streets and the persistent radio static. The similarities to an ordinary American town are there to welcome us at first. There are cars parked along the curbs, familiar places like a school or a 7-Eleven. Even the abandoned houses seem to whisper stories about the people who once lived there. But you can quickly realize in the first seconds of the game that this is no ordinary town. You can't hide the horrors behind the fog. It still screams from within the white mist that surrounds you from the very beginning. It feels like a dream. The town is never truly silent despite its name. Wings flap in the distance, getting closer. The radio in your pocket hisses with static. A foreboding heavy sound accompanies you, and then it suddenly stops. Harry's footsteps echo through empty streets and tight hallways as he searches for his daughter. Your inventory has no limit. You keep collecting items, but you are never full. You're narrowly surviving one location, then suddenly wake up in another, with no explanation, in some unknown corner of the town. This is how dreamlike Silent Hill can be. Everything feels unreal, from the rubber ball puzzle to Lisa, one of the most tragic and haunting moments in the entire game. Dream logic isn't just a part of the narrative, it's part of the world itself. It's Alessa's nightmare after all, and like every nightmare, it has a beginning.
He said the only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life. Your memories, your attachments, they burn them all away. But they're not punishing you, he said. They're freeing your soul. Relax. Good.
Harry Mason wakes up after a car crash. His daughter, who was in the passenger seat, is nowhere to be found. He steps out of the car and starts looking for her. This is how the game begins, if you skip the intro cutscene. One thing that quickly stands out is the lack of information responsible for creating this eeriness that surrounds the plot. You are dropped into a foggy town with minimal context, which only deepens the game's dreamlike atmosphere. If you play casually, Harry might seem like just an ordinary father gunning down every hostile creature in the town to find his daughter. But to make this video a little bit more interesting, I want to bring a different perspective. The official Silent Hill novelization, released only in Japan in 2001 and written by Sadamu Yamashita. While it isn't considered canon, it adds meaningful layers and context to the characters. One of those characters being Harry. In the game, he wakes up and immediately starts searching for Cheryl, but in the novelization, Sadamu adds more tension and psychological depth. His desperation is more vivid, his urgency feels heavier as Harry rushes through the unknown streets of the town. The emotional wave makes the search for Cheryl feels even more intense than what the game already delivers. Charles Hatcher, Albert Fish, Jesse Pomeroy, numerous names of notorious figures from the past flash through Harry's mind. Their sinister images superimposed on his daughter. Those were the monsters that lurked in society, criminals that were preying on innocent children. What if Cheryl, a little girl alone and lost in a familiar town, encountered one of them by pure chances?
Have you seen a little girl? Just turned 7 last month, short, black hair. My daughter.
Sorry. The only person I've seen in this town is you.
Harry's just an ordinary man. He never killed anyone, probably never even pulled a trigger. Maybe in one of his fiction stories written during a freelance gig, he imagined something like that, but in real life, he's no elite soldier. He's not a part of any special forces unit. He's not trained to face threats, let alone an entire town crawling with monsters. Harry is a
My name is Alan
Oh,
Wake.
come on, shut the
a
fuck
writer.
up, Alan. The game emphasizes Harry's unprepared nature in many ways throughout the gameplay. The way he swings melee weapons, most of which really suck, his breathing grows louder and deeper as he runs from block to block. Despite the sound feedback, though, he doesn't actually lose any stamina. If you run too fast and don't stop in time, he will stumble into walls. Every time Harry shoots, he will miss some of his shots, even with the game's lock-on aiming system. Harry isn't a fighter, he's just a father, desperate to find his daughter. Even the novelization amplifies this aspect of his character. After being confronted by one of the town's monstrosities, Harry barely survives a near-death battle. He almost unloads an entire magazine into the beast, leaving it almost dead on the cold, grimy town floor. He's ready to deliver the final blow, but his hands shake with desperation. The toe of his shoe sank into the dog's belly. With a yelp, the dog's fangs came free from the sleeve. The usually kind-hearted Harry, who would have been troubled by animal abuse, was overshadowed by the fear of being attacked and is now driven by violent instincts. After all, underneath his gentle nature was still a human. He quickly aimed his gun and fired, once, twice, 3 times. He continued pulling the trigger frantically, hurling curses, emptying the 15-round magazine. And he didn't stop even then. This is why the novel made the game 10 times better for me. In the game, Harry can come across as this unstoppable badass father figure who's willing to tear the whole town apart to find his daughter, but the novel shows it wasn't that simple. Harry is an ordinary guy forced to confront fears he never imagined, pushed into situations that make him question everything, his morals, his instincts, his very sense of self. He crosses lines, blurs the boundaries between right and wrong just to survive. It shows how Silent Hill's nightmare doesn't just haunt people, it changes them. Even a kind-hearted father can become someone he never thought he will be. The surreal, untrustworthy nature of the town wasn't the only real danger. In Harry's mind, far worse things were bound to happen if he didn't find his daughter soon. Desperation grows, urgency builds, and the only thing left to do is take her first steps in.
Cheryl? Is that Cheryl? Where are you going? Hey, wait! Stop!
The roaring sound of a siren can mean many things, and its meaning often depends on who is hearing it. It might signal a car crash or a tragic roadkill. It could be the sound of a building on fire or the alarm of a bank that's just being robbed. Or it could represent something far more terrifying. In an interview for the Siren's Maniacs guidebook, Keiichiro Toyama, the game's director, was asked whether the inspiration for Silent Hill sirens came from the air raids alarms used during war. Many Japanese people had read about those alarms or participated in evacuation drills growing up, so the association was deeply ingrained in their collective memory. Yeah, I'm from Kyushu, and I was raised in a small rural town, so whenever there was a fire, I would hear the siren. Whether I was playing or what, suddenly, and I could never really tell where it was coming from. What I knew for sure was that something bad was happening. Silent Hill loves to turn the normal into the abnormal. A school, a gurney, a wheelchair, a doghouse. You've seen these things before, you know them, but the connection you have with them is completely different from the way the game presents them. It plays with your expectations and twists them into something far worse than you imagine. And it's not just there to make you uneasy. It has a purpose, a sort of way of foreshadowing the story as you move forward. One of the best examples of this happens right at the beginning, just before the infamous alleyway scene. Harry is desperately chasing the fading silhouette of his beloved daughter, Cheryl. With every step she takes, she disappears deeper into the fog. He follows her into a narrow alleyway behind what seems to be neighborhood houses lined with garage doors and garbage bins. Snow falls gently. Harry's footsteps echo, and a faint, eerie tune plays in the background. No monsters, no Cheryl, just silence and dread. Then, footsteps. A gate creak open. Harry moves towards the sound and finds a half-open iron fence. A small sign reads, "Beware of dog." This is where the game gives you a hint, an expectation. If you walk around your own neighborhood or somewhere else, you've probably seen this sign before. It feels like a warning. And then... there's no dog. Well, not a living one, only a corpse. In the middle of a bloodstain was the mangled body of a dog, beaten so severely that it had become an unrecognizable mass of flesh, twisted and broken. The brutality reminded Harry extreme cases of animal abuse committed by deranged individuals, and he turns his eyes away, sickened by the cruelty done to the poor creature. The dog you were supposed to be aware of, the danger that could hurt you or even kill you, is already dead, obliterated by something else, something bigger, stronger, something far more terrifying than a hungry, aggressive dog. The game took your expectation and tore it into pieces, replaced with a fear your mind can yet comprehend. This is what great horror does, and this isn't the only time Silent Hill does it. Silent Hill feels like a collection of nightmares. Despite its consistent art direction and cohesive design, each section plays like a distinct nightmare with its own tone and flavor. The school evokes different fears and thoughts than the hospital. The moment in between wandering the fog-covered town carry a different quieter dread than the tight, claustrophobic corridors of indoor areas. That's part of the charm, and it might explain why each game in the series, especially the first 4, is still so widely debated to this day. A nightmare might have a reason behind it, but rarely a concrete explanation, only interpretations. Why is the town empty? Why does the radio hiss when a monster is near? Why was there a cat trapped in a locker at the school? How can Eddie just sit there and eat pizza? Well, the last one would be discussed in another video. The more I search for answers, the more I realize I don't want them. And maybe that's why I've always found the endings to Stephen King stories kind of suck. I didn't want to know what Pennywise really was. I didn't need an explanation for The Shining, The Stand, or any of the others. I don't want to fully understand Silent Hill's true nature either. Nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They are antithetical to the poetry of fear. Ironically, that quote comes from Stephen King himself. It was taken from an article where he argued that Hollywood would never truly get horror. A great quote, coming from the wrong guy. But it fits perfectly here, not just for Silent Hill, but also for games like Signalis or even Alan Wake, which literally opens with that quote. There's a thin line in horror between saying too little and saying too much, explaining just enough to ground the story without killing the mystery. The balance is what elevates a horror story from forgettable to unforgettable. And that's why I love Silent Hill. It's why I remember it. I don't recall every combat sequence or boss fight. Those are just glimpses, but the essence of eeriness, the unanswered questions, that's what always brings me back.
Unanswered questions, like one of my favorite moments in the game. The first time we pulled into the town's nightmare. That dark alley Harry walks through before the real game begins. The first glimpse of the unknown. The first time we're forced to ask, was this real? Or just a nightmare?
The narrow space made him feel claustrophobic, bringing back memories of when he had crawled into the drainage pipe as a child, thinking it was an adventure, only to panic and got stuck until his friends pulled him out. He wasn't fully claustrophobic, but Harry had always disliked tight and closed spaces. If it weren't for Cheryl, he would have turned back by now. Everything started with a simple trip Cheryl suggested to go to Silent Hill. Harry, wanting to fulfill his daughter's wishes, didn't question a thing. He wanted to be more present in her life. He had grown distant after his wife passing. Grief had taken him away. This trip was a chance to reconnect with Cheryl. Of course, it didn't matter how many furious client calls Harry received during the trip. His only focus was his daughter, the only thing he truly loves. Everything felt perfect, felt right, just like a dream. But as Max Payne once said, dreams have a nasty habit of going bad when you're not looking. During the road trip, someone appeared in the middle of the road, crossing at night, seemingly out of nowhere. Harry swerved violently to avoid hitting the girl. He lost control of the jeep, leading to a crash. That's where the game begins. Harry wakes up alone inside his wrecked car in the middle of Silent Hill. What was meant to be a dream vacation begins to spiral into a walking nightmare. With every step Harry takes into the foggy town, things get worse. The once peaceful getaway now leads him into a tight, dark alleyway. He doesn't know what to expect, if Cheryl is really there, if she's even alive. That's why this section hits so hard. The camera twists and turns in ways unlike anything else in the game, or even in other survival horror games from that time. The Dutch angles disorient the players as you push forward. There's only one path, but it feels uncertain. A muffled ambient follows Harry's footsteps as he passes through another metal fence. The alleyway grows darker after crossing a metal gate, until there's no light at all. A siren screams in the distance, echoing through the air as the world shifts. Harry lights a small lighter from his pocket and keeps walking, despite not being able to see what lies ahead. A wheelchair, a blood-covered gurney, the muffled soundscape turns into pure industrial chaos. Snow becomes rain, the notes rise in pitch. And then, Harry finds a mutilated, rotting corpse strung up in barbed wire. Before there's time to process what he's seeing, small childlike monsters with knives begin to surround him. We can try to run, but the path that led us here is now gone, like it never existed. There's no way out, no way to fight, only one thing left to do. Was it all just a dream? Was it? According to Silent Hill play novel, released in 2001 for the Game Boy Advance, if you play as Sybil, you learn that when she arrives in Silent Hill and enters the cafe, Carrie is already there, having a frightening nightmare, as she puts it. In that version, she is simply fine seen inside, but in the novelization it plays out differently. Sybil actually saves Harry from the alleyway monsters, dragging his unconscious body to safety. The last thing to reach Harry was the distant echo of a gunshot. There's also a third theory, one that pops up in fan forums, that after the car crash, Harry never made it into the alley at all. Instead, he was unconscious in his Jeep the entire time, dreaming, until Sybil found him and brought him inside. Which theory is correct? Honestly, I don't know, and I kind of don't want to. This is the thin line where horror thrives. Give just enough detail to make the player wonder, but never enough to kill the mystery. Was the alleyway scene an actual nightmare? Or was it the hole, like the one Alice falls into following the White Rabbit? Silent Hill has plenty of Alice in Wonderland references, so maybe it fits. The alleyway as the rabbit hole, the twisting, skewed camera angles as the moment Alice falls, tumbling into a new reality. Maybe it is a dream. Maybe Harry never wakes up. Maybe parts of the game are real and others aren't. Or maybe none of it is real. And that's the point.
What's your name?
Harry. Harry Mason.
Sybil Bennett. I'm a police officer from Brams, the next town over.
Dialogue isn't Silent Hill's strongest asset. If you're expecting top-notch, you are in the wrong place. The long, awkward pauses, the flat, monotone delivery is not how you expect people to talk after waking up in a monster-infested ghost town, but somehow it works. It's unnerving in a way that fits the town's surreal, dreamlike quality. It's like Twin Peaks, conversations that feel slightly off, as if the characters know more than they are letting on, or as if their minds are somewhere else entirely. I wonder if it was intentional or just a result of poor voice direction. Was it a mistake? Were the actors inexperienced? Turns out, no.
Michael Gein, the voice of Harry Mason, also played Dracula in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Yes, that Dracula, the one who drops the infamous miserable pile of secrets line. Clearly, talent wasn't the issue. Recently, at the Silent Hill cast reunion panel, several original voice actors, including Michael Gein, talked about the unusual tone of the dialogue. When someone asked why the delivery sounded so strange, their answers genuinely surprised me.
So the question was, it seems like there's a lot of David Lynch influence in the voice, surrealism, yeah, and the voice acting. And the question was that some deliberate direction, or is
No, I would say nothing like that. They just said, here are your lines, and see, and so I just said, the evil Dahlia Gillespie. That was just, her voice just had to be like that. You know, so they didn't tell me to do it. It just seemed right.
The direction I recall is they wanted hyper real. You know, they wanted not cartoony, they wanted really authentic real. I had just finished a BFA in acting where I did a lot of like crying on the floor, you know. And so that, I think they did specifically cast actors who could like bring a hyper realistic performance.
So I had a really different experience, and we haven't talked about it yet, but when I went in, the same thing about the technology and things like that, I was told to leave a long pause after every period and a few commas. And I looked at the director who I knew and trusted, and we get along really, really well. And I said, that's gonna sound so stilted. And he goes, oh, don't worry. We're gonna cut that out in post-production. Don't worry. They didn't cut it out. They did not cut it out. So you guys never heard my reading, but I wanted it to be really realistic and natural, and I don't know, something, I don't think I've done another game quite like that, or voiced another game like that.
Yeah.
After talking to Sybil, she hands Harry a gun and heads outside to look for help. She tells him to stay put until she comes back, but deep down, she already knows Harry won't listen.
But listen, I want you to stay put, okay? Don't leave this cafe, no matter what.
Got it.
Promise me.
But Sybil knew all too well that such a promise from Harry was unlikely to be kept. Once Sybil leaves, the game truly begins. You can gather a few essentials before heading out. A health drink for healing, a flashlight for the many pitch black areas you will encounter, and a map, which you will open every 5 steps as you navigate Silent Hill labyrinth of streets and alleys. The map is wonderfully easy to follow. Harry automatically marks blocked paths with a red line and notes objectives, puzzles, and points of interest. It quickly becomes your most reliable companion, showing you not only where you've been, but what's worth investigating next. You also find a block of notes that acts as a save point. In universe, Harry writes this like a diary for anyone who might stumble upon them later. Part record, part warning. On the other side of the counter sits a kitchen knife, a small detail that, for me, highlights one of the game's biggest downsides. Silent Hill's story pacing is phenomenal. It starts slow and unsettling, feeding you just enough pieces to start forming the big picture. It intrigues, scares, builds tension, and lends its climax with precision. It never gives away too much, so you keep guessing until the end. And even then, the story doesn't really end. Silent Hill isn't a one-and-done kind of town. So what does the kitchen knife have to do with all of this? Well, while the story is a rising, twisting line of mystery and tension, the combat feels like a flat plateau. It's just there. Gameplay-wise, I still prefer Silent Hill over Resident Evil or Dino Crisis for one big reason: the camera. Cinematic camera angles are an incredible horror tool, letting developers guide your perspective and craft set pieces with precision. They build dread by stealing your agency. You can't peek ahead, you can't slowly open a door to see what's inside. You just have to commit. Silent Hill has those moments with carefully staged shots that show you exactly what the devs want you to see. But unlike the older Resident Evil games, which lock you into static angles that can drop an enemy right on top of you with no warning, Silent Hill often gives you a partial reprieve, a free roaming camera in many open areas. By holding L2 and using the directional pad, you can adjust your view, an absolute godsend. If you know an enemy is lurking around the corner, you can line up your camera to be ready, rather than eating unavoidable hits. This small bit of agency doesn't kill the tension. The town's nightmarish nature keeps you on edge, but it removes needless frustration. You are not wasting precious resources on cheap, camera-induced ambushes. The focus remains where it should be, on the story, the world, the files, the puzzles, not on turning Harry into a monster-slaying arsenal. In that sense, Silent Hill's gameplay is the steady track that carries you through the narrative highs, but like a roller coaster, even the smoothest rides have their dips. Melee combat in Silent Hill is rigid. Harry plants his feet, waits for the monster to come to him, and if you mistime your swing, you just eat hit after hit. The game gives you a surprising number of melee options, from the knife to an axe, and eventually the glorious sledgehammer, which is by far the best one. Against certain enemies like nurses and scratchers, the sledgehammer is generally effective, saving you ammo and ending fights quickly. But for most encounters, I stuck to my trusty handgun. Range combat is powerful, simple, and generously supported. Too generously. Ammo and health are scattered everywhere. By the first hour, I had so many bullets and healing items that any sense of survivor tension evaporated. The infinite inventory fits the Dream Logic theme, but it also means you are a walking arsenal. Why fear the monsters when you can shrug off multiple hits and patch yourself instantly? You can also avoid most fights entirely. Wide areas make outrunning enemies trivial. It's nothing like the tight, high-stakes hallways of the Spencer Mansion, where dodging enemies was a tense, risky gamble. In Silent Hill, that kind of claustrophobic pressure only arises in the later sections, but by then, you're already a well-armed, overstocked machine. The enemies become less of a threat and more like occasional roadblocks, slowing down the real start of the game: the story. I'm not saying it's goofy or completely lacking in fear. Every time you hear the radio static rise before an enemy encounter, it still delivers a bone-chilling creative punch. The opening hours of the game, when you are learning how to fight and survive, are the most terrifying. You don't know what might emerge from the fog. Sometimes you hear a strange noise from an unfamiliar enemy, the radio hisses, and the tension keeps building. Silent Hill understands how to construct and sustain horror, but over time the gameplay starts to erode that tension. Eventually the radio hiss stops making you nervous, because you know you can simply gun the monster down. Especially when you are carrying over 500 bullets in your unlimited inventory. You can even run past most enemies, avoiding the same repetitive dance of aiming, shooting, and waiting for them to fall. This shift turns Harry into something he's not, a killing machine, and gives the player too much power to truly feel threatened by anything the game throws at them. She always carried around the sketchbook Harry had given her for her 5th birthday. It wasn't that she loved drawing, but rather she kept it close as a substitute for her father, who couldn't often play with her. Exploration is one of the best and most enjoyable parts of Silent Hill. After our first combat encounter in the cafe, the game finally lets us roam the town. If you want, you can even retrace your steps all the way back to the spot where you first took control of Harry, seeing where he came from. Everywhere you go, there's something to discover. Items tucked away in corners, story set pieces like the jeep Harry woke up in after the crash, or the road out of town, now blocked by massive boulders, as if an earthquake had just struck. The streets are peppered with Easter eggs, street names pulled from famous authors, newspapers hinting at Buffalo Bill possibly being on the loose, and more literal nods like the Shining reference, or the entire school section inspired by the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Kindergarten Cop, which, oddly enough, fits Silent Hill's aesthetic perfectly.
Stop it!
Even when you find buildings you can enter, I couldn't stop wondering who lived here, who used to work in this diner. Every sealed-off house felt like it had a story, and the rare optional interiors you could explore were just as intriguing. There are signs everywhere that this town was once alive, that real people lived here before the fog rolled in, and that lingering question kept me wandering the silent streets, looking for answers. Harry's story feels like one of many that could be told here. The moments between major story beats, where the game simply lets you explore and soak in the atmosphere, are some of the most mysterious and rewarding parts of the entire experience. And it's even more impressive when you remember this is all running on a glorious PlayStation 1.
Of course, what they could do with the town was limited. The PlayStation was not strong enough for some of the ideas the team had, and cutting corners helped to take some of the load off the game. Remove the fog, for instance, and you see many of Silent Hill's houses and streets aren't fully modeled. They wanted the player to be able to climb walls, for the background to be more realistic, for there to be breaking glass and visible bullet holes. None of it was possible. But they managed with what they had, using technical aspects to hide their limitations, the dark shadows and foggy streets keeping the less polished pieces of the game hidden.
Silent Hill's gameplay loop feels like a twisted game of hide and seek, except you think you know who you are chasing. The first real puzzle is to find your daughter, and everything begins when Harry decides to return to the alleyway where he supposedly died. Among the scattered items, he finds a crumpled piece of paper torn from Cheryl's sketchbook, the very one he gave her, the one she was holding in the opening cutscene. On it, written in crayon, is a simple message: to school. He had the sudden terrifying images of his little girl being kidnapped and held captive, all of which vividly flashes before his eyes. His mind was overwhelmed with knowledge of horrific crime cases, almost ready to burst. The pressure of rage and impatience surged within, propelling Harry into a full sprint, not caring about his burning lungs or his aching feet. From the start, there's a playful undercurrent woven into the puzzle design. On your way to the school, you find more crumpled sketchbook pages, short, almost innocent notes pointing you towards the next destination, as if Cheryl herself were leaving you a trail. One leads you to 11th Street, where a doghouse clue hides a key tucked into a corner. But once you reach the school, that sense of reassurance curdles. The notes are still leading you onward, but now they are written in blood. They still resemble a child's handwriting, yet their tone feels different. Less like a daughter's cry for help and more like a bait. The crayons that once radiated warmth and nostalgia are placed by a creeping anxiety. The thought that someone else might be guiding you or toying with you. Were these messages ever from Cheryl at all? Or has someone been luring Harry from the very beginning, cloaking their trap in the guise of a child's voice? As hard as he tried to push these thoughts out of his mind, the dark thoughts and imagery never stopped creeping in, as he kept filling Harry with measurable amount of fear and dread. The mere thoughts was enough for tears to start to well up in his eyes, frustrated by his lack of progress.
No, I can't. Come on, pull yourself together already. Cheryl has to be alive. The very fact that I haven't found her yet means she's still out there somewhere. If my search turns up nothing, I will just start over. I have to go back to the entrance lobby. I must have missed something, a clue of some sort. I will scour this entire place as many times as it takes to find even the smallest of leads.
Unlike the Spencer mentioned in Resident Evil, where there's irrefutable evidence of someone lurking around every corner and behind every camera angle, gathering combat data for the best STARS members, here we don't know. The notes tells us that someone is many steps ahead, but despite the blood, they are never threatening. They guide us, never leading to an impossible or unfair puzzle or fight. It feels as if someone truly is trying to help us escape, or at least achieve something. Each one reads like a desperate scream for help, etched into the paper.
Maybe Harry isn't chasing his daughter. Maybe he's chasing the things that hold answers.
I know that you look at the solution for this one. The school section is one of the most unsettling parts of the entire game. Not only because of the monsters looking in the corridors and classrooms, but because of how disturbingly ordinary the setting feels. We walk through familiar spaces, a nursery, classrooms lined with desks and chalkboards, bathrooms with mold creeping across the tiles, a chemistry lab, even a schoolyard. But just like the town outside, everything is off. The nursery, usually a place of care and protection, feels abandoned. Cabinets are still stocked with medicine, but the only thing filling the air is a thick and oppressive silence. The hallways are patrolled by the Grey Children, knife-wielding creatures with small, childlike bodies, the same enemies that first ambushed Harry at the game's beginning. They are the main threat in this section, wandering aimlessly through the dark corridors, ready to kill Harry again. Their appearance is what makes them so disturbing. They're monsters, yes, but the proportions, movements, and cries are far too human. Attacking them never feels natural, it feels wrong. You hesitate, even as they lunge at you with knives in hand. The Grey Children don't even have an official name. According to files and censored versions of the game, they are also being called mumblers or claw fingers. Whatever the label, theory suggests that they tie to the students who once walked these hallways. And that connection is what makes them so unsettling. Why are innocent children reimagined as bloodthirsty killers? Why turn something so pure into a symbol of horror? This is where Silent Hill shows its true psychological edge. This isn't just another creepy school built for jump scare. It's the first real sign of tragedy behind the story, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. For me, the school wasn't just an unease because of its monsters. It was unease because of the implications, because of the weight those childlike figures carry. In the book, Harry's hesitation is real, and playing through it, I felt the same. Harry's hand trembled as he drew his gun for his belt. He had already dispatched 2 dogs and felt a bit more confident in handling these creatures. Yet, this one, with his vaguely human form, was more disturbing and repulsive than the dogs or the bird. This thing was broken, shambling imitation of a human being. A child even. The mere sight of it evoked a primal sense of revulsion. and fear. Midwich Elementary School is dreadful in its details, and its dire nature intensifies with every new clue. Each discovery pushes us forward with a sense of progress, but also a false sense of hope that Harry is finally closer to finding his daughter. The puzzles are nothing like the standard Resident Evil ones. Back in the Spencer Mansion, puzzles felt like pieces of a larger mechanical riddle, a way of conquering the house itself. They rarely carry meaning beyond gameplay. In Midwich, every piece matters. Every enemy, every room, every uncanny sound, like the cry of a child echoing from the boys' bathroom. Some say it's Alessa, but why would she be there? Was she hiding? And what about the violent knife-carved woods on a classroom desk? Do they connect to the blood scrawled across the books we found at the reception? Even the rubber ball puzzle. Could it be tied to something Alessa once did on the rooftop? Some desperate attempt at escape from the horrors she endured here? The school seems to bear a religious wave as well. Its crucifixes and architectural details echoing the Catholic schools I once attended as a teenager. This place isn't just guiding Harry forward. It's warning us. It's speaking through its items, its files, its atmosphere, trying to tell us what's happening and why we should keep going. That becomes clear when we find a book in the library. A tale of a hunter armed with a bow, defeating a lizard by shooting into his open mouth. Minutes later, that story becomes prophecy, teaching us how to slay Silent Hill's first boss. But this revelation doesn't occur in the familiar school. It unfolds in a twisted, decayed version of Midwich, eerily similar, yet darker and more sinister in every way.
Where am I? Have I been here before? I don't remember this being here before.
That's why Harry made the decision to visit Silent Hill, a place Shadow had been eager to see for reasons he couldn't quite figure out or knew where he was. Even though she was thrilled about their first trip, she couldn't hide her concern that her father might be tiring himself out. No matter how much he assured her that his schedule had conveniently opened up, her worries did not fade away. Harry felt a deep sense of guilt, even though he hadn't intended this trip as a way to make up for all the times he hadn't been able to be the father he wanted to be. But instead, due to one stupid driving mistake, he had now placed Cheryl in danger. If she were to fall at hands of some deranged criminal, the consequences would be unthinkable. To understand Silent Hill, you need to understand Alessa. I didn't come up with that line. It's something that I heard in one of the many Silent Hill lore videos I've watched over the years. But the more you dive into those videos, the more contradictions you find, each one offering a new theory, a new interpretation, until the search for truth becomes an endless pit where puzzle pieces never quite fit. Take Alessa's origins, for example. In the Brady Games official strategy guide, it says, any information regarding Alessa's father is unknown. At least one source claims that Alessa was created through magical conjuration by a fanatical sect within the order led by Dahlia. As a result, the seed of an embryonic god was created within her. But some members of official forums dismiss that as outright wrong, and that's Silent Hill in a nutshell. There are official, concrete truths, but once you dive too deep into the lore, that's when the inconsistencies begin to surface. To understand Alessa is to descend into a nightmare where the answers keep shifting the further you chase them. But things start to feel a little bit more clear when looking at the Koshiki guide. The guidebook states that neither the fog world nor the other world are reality, and it's compared to the cycles of REM, rapid eye movement sleep. During the times when the town becomes darker, it is because Alessa's dreams is deepening, becoming more surreal and twisted. It is also partly due to the malevolent god in her uterus, warping and affecting her dreams, which nourishes on her hatred, fear, and terror. According to an article from the Sleep Foundation, REM is best known for its association with vivid dreaming. And it's true that most intense dreams tend to occur during this stage. The article highlights one of the key features of rapid eye movement. It is the fourth and final stage of sleep, the moment when dreams reach their most vivid and intense form. If we map Silent Hill's story as a dream from beginning to end, the REM's explanations fit like a glove. As I mentioned before, the game begins cryptic yet calm. Events take a while to unravel, but when they do, they spiral deeper and deeper. Your progress from foggy Silent Hill Town into a twisted alleyway, which feels like a gateway into the first of many REM stages of Alessa's nightmare. Silent Hill mirrors the 4 stages of sleep, and treating the story this way makes it seem clearer. It also explains why everything feels so inconsistent, because dreams themselves are inconsistent. This idea becomes even more convincing when we consider how little science truly understands about nightmares. As the book Clinical Neurophysiology points out, there's still a striking lack of information. Nightmares are intense and highly unpleasant mental experiences that occur usually, but not exclusively, during late-night rapid eye movement sleep, and often provoke abrupt awakenings. The underlying mechanism of nightmare disorder was only scarcely investigated and remains poorly understood. If the fog and the other world aren't reality, that explains a lot. Why the townsfolk are absent, why some places still feel alive, while others feel frozen in nightmare. Maybe the people of Silent Hill are still living their lives normally. We are just intruders, trapped inside Alessa's dream. Nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. That's why Alessa might have been conjured by magic, or simply born like any other child. That's why Harry may have died in the alleyway, or survived only to wake in the cafe. Why Sybil might have saved him. Why Cheryl was found in the end, or not at all. Perhaps the nightmare is just Harry's subconscious struggle to survive after their car crash. It's also why good and good plus endings remain equally plausible as canon, because in a nightmare there is no absolute truth. The game hints at this from the very start. The close encounters with the town's monstrosities, the strangely stilted dialogues, the limitless inventory, the oddly placed puzzles, the crayon notes, the school and its other world.
I'm not saying there's no official truths, but the feeling of variations of the same story is what makes this game so intriguing.
Our first plunge into the other world comes during the game's intro, when Harry supposedly dies before waking up at the cafe. But the first time we are properly introduced to it is after solving the clock tower puzzle and slipping through a small door hidden at its base.
Most influential among them would be Toyama Keiichiro as director, who would also throw his hat in the ring as a designer developing various levels, including the 2D maps of the Otherworld School, the above-ground levels of the Otherworld Hospital, and the sewers. You can thank Toyama for the body falling out of the school locker, too. Ito Masahiro was also heavily involved in environmental design. In fact, he says he spent more time on background design than monsters in the first game. The Otherworld School was his work, a job that apparently took 2 weeks. He also created the hospital basement, as well as the inside of the Gillespie house. The actual layout and appearance of the town, its streets and storefronts would come from Takahashi, and the Otherworld, the nightmarish dreamscape of the game, would come from the combined efforts of Takahashi and Ito Masahiro. The first time the two met, Ito was delighted to find that he and Takahashi shared an interest in the film Jacob's Ladder. When Ito went to see it in theaters, the seats had been nearly empty. No one had been interested in the film at the time. Finding another fan had been delightful to him, and one night while they were up late working, the two spent a while discussing the film's merits. The film was a major influence on the game. They would divide the Otherworld between them. Ito created most of the inside Otherworld areas, such as the school. Takahashi would develop the outside Otherworld, and his works would seem to draw influence from another film, one Takahashi adored. In fact, when he thinks of words like hell or Otherworld or messengers from the dark, this one film is what comes to mind. A film he thinks he'll never escape from. Hellraiser.
The dark interiors of Midwich Elementary somehow grew darker. Harry's flashlight doesn't just illuminate, it screams against the suffocating lack of vision the Otherworld imposes. The music shifts into something loud, chaotic, and industrial, born from the genius of Akira Yamaoka. He wasn't just responsible for one of the greatest soundtracks in gaming, he also created the distorted, unsettling sounds using everyday objects like forks, knives, and broken glass. Again, the normal becomes abnormal, which is why these sounds blend so perfectly with the rotting, crackling walls. The industrial echoes, the muffled bangs reverberating in your eardrums, match the barbed wire and grated metal floors, beneath which lies only pure darkness. The other world is unsettling because it's deceptive. At first, it seems like you're just exploring the same school again, only repainted with grotesque strokes. But soon the nightmare reveals itself. Doors that once led to familiar rooms now open into entirely different spaces. If you turn back and re-enter, you might find yourself on a different floor altogether. Even the map, once a reliable lifeline, becomes treacherous. A tool that guided you now betrays you, adding another layer of helplessness. The once safe nurse office now bears the word hell etched on the cabinet. The bizarre painting in the waiting room seems to rife with life. Bodies hang limply from the grated walls, while a nearby door almost dares you to open it. The other world isn't just a shift in atmosphere, it's a shift in reality. It tells you that nothing we've seen before truly matters, because this place rewrites its own rules. Perhaps Sybil wasn't real, or maybe she was. How much of this is happening? And if none of it is, what exactly is happening at all?
Daddy? Help me. Daddy? Where are you?
Cheryl!
The cold, unwielding sound of that line beeped in Harry's ears. In a second, her voice was cut off. The call was cut off. Harry stood frozen, still clutching the receiver. His heart pounded. The blood vessels in his forehead throbbed, and his blood pressure must have shot up. Images of notorious criminals danced widely in his mind. Cheryl had called out for help. Her voice was on the verge of tears. Monsters, magic circles. Was his daughter kidnapped to be sacrificed in a black magic ritual performed by a cult? His heart felt like it was going to explode. 11 people formed the team behind the town's development, but 2 key developers were especially responsible for bringing the other world to life. One of them was Masahiro Ito, the father of Pyramid Head. In Silent Hill 1, he not only designed the monsters but also created background textures and interiors, such as the Midwich Elementary School. The exterior set pieces, on the other hand, were assigned to Isao Takahashi. Their combined work blended together seamlessly, thanks in part to their shared fascination with one of their biggest influences at the time, the movie Jacob's Ladder. Back then, the film wasn't widely acclaimed. Ito even recalled going to the cinema and finding the seats almost entirely empty, but that rarity made it even more special. Discovering someone who shared the same passion for something so obscure created the spark that fueled their vision for the project. There is a book that you can read at the library, which is near the Hunter's Tale book that reads. Additionally, poltergeisters are also thought to be a type of this phenomenon. Extreme anxiety, fear, stress, and other negative emotions manifest as external physical energy. Cases have been documented where these events were triggered by nightmares during sleep. However, not everyone is susceptible to such occurrences. Inherent traits play a significant role, and these incidents most commonly occur around adolescents, particularly girls. Harry slammed the book shut, as if to avoid the memories it stirred. He recalled the unpleasant events, Cheryl's.
Cheryl, can you please be more quiet? I can't work with all that noise.
Sorry, Daddy.
Who's that you were playing with? Neighbor friend? Some of the neighboring kids?
It's the boogeyman.
Oh, really? So you're telling me the ghost from under your bed crawled out in the middle of the day?
I asked him not to come, but...
Oh, Cheryl, you're such a sweet girl. Even the monsters can't resist you.
He tries to take me away. He says, come with me.
That sounds serious.
Well, if I don't listen, the boogeyman will scratch me with his claws.
Let me see. This is...
The welts on Cheryl's arms still burn into Harry's memory. They looked like lines of writing, as if they had been carved into her skin. The details in the other world become a little more distorted. Here, we can see everyday objects laying around corridors or hanging on the walls. Things that feel like they are there just to freak us out, but they are actually trying to tell us something. especially when you get to our first and only good boss fight in the entire game. There's an essay by Tolkien called On Fairy Stories, where he reflects on what makes a fairy tale. There's a quote that really caught my interest. The road to fairyland is not the road to heaven, nor even to hell. I believe, though some had held that it may lead thither, indirectly by the devil's side. Old folks' tales were often far darkened than the softened versions we know today. Before 19th century, sanitizing by writers like Behu or The Brothers Grimm, many stories include child-eating witches, mutilation, abandonment, and death. They served as cautionary lessons for survival. Don't wander in the forest alone, and deliberately carried frightening imagery. That darkness overlaps with nightmares, which also reflects primal fears. Fairy tales externalize those fears, while nightmares internalize them. Silent Hill leans into that overlap. The game is full of fairy tale references and even uses classic tales as a loose framework for its narrative. Alessa was an avid reader of fairy tales, which is why so many connections appear scattered throughout the town. Silent Hill is a combination of many different works of art, from the most obvious one like Stephen King's The Mist, to subtle influences such as Hellraiser and the disturbing paintings of Francis Bacon. The game is riddled with references and homages, a feast for everyone who loves digging into the little details of its production and tracing the inspirations that shaped such a creepy experience. After the car crash, Harry follows what appears to be his daughter into an alleyway, a passage that suddenly transports him into the other world, only for him to wake up again just as death closes in. That fall into another realm mirrors Alice's trip down the rabbit hole. Another direct nod appears in one of the earliest puzzles, the three Eclipse keys, Lion, Woodman, and Scarecrow, a direct reference to the Wizard of Oz. Both Alice and Dorothy's stories resonate with Harry's journey. Each protagonist is cast into another dimension where reality feels more like a hallucination. At first, these worlds are mysterious, even inviting. But the deeper they go, the more twisted everything becomes. In the end, like Dorothy returning home and Alice waking up, Silent Hill suggests that maybe everything was just a dream, or perhaps it truly happened in a place we will never understand. Fairy tales are often written for children, carrying them into mysterious other worlds. Silent Hill constantly evokes this imagery. Alice's opening reference, the Wizard of Oz keys, the Hunter's Tales in Midwich Library. These aren't just inspirations, they echo Alessa's inner world. At the end of the game, when we reach Alessa's room, the connection becomes crystal clear. The tiny rectangular bedroom stands in sharp contrast to the gore and horror leading up to it. Instead, it radiates an unsettling kind of safety. Inside, we find objects that seem ordinary but hold deeper meaning. Butterflies displaying boxes, a school uniform, a reminder of both Alessa's cutscenes and her torment at the school, where she was bullied and branded a witch. Shelves lined with old fairy tales and picture books of animals and plants, explaining why many monsters reflect either her traumas, like the great children tied to the school, or her interests, creatures inspired by the stories she loved. Sketches scattered across the floor resemble the very enemies we thought, from the final boss itself to the split head. Silent Hill doesn't just borrow from fairy tales, it reframes them as reflections of a child's nightmare, fusing innocence with horror. The creature resembling a giant lizard slowly circumvented the flames and approached. Its body, illuminated by the fire, looked pale, as if it had been born and raised deep underground, far from any light. As skin gleamed as though wet with slime, and where his eyes should have been, there were only hollow sockets. Despite its enormous size, surpassing even a crocodile, its limbs were underdeveloped and feeble, barely supporting his large frame. Fortunately for Harry, the lizard's movements were slow. Bosses in this game are boring. With the exception of Splithead, every other encounter can basically be summoned as stockpile ammo and keep shooting until the monster goes bye-bye. Their attacks are telegraphed, sometimes easy to track, sometimes not, thanks to clunky camera angles or the enemy being too big for the frame. Sure, you could try to circle around and time a perfect shot, but honestly, I had so many healing items that I could just tank through the fights. That said, the bosses aren't meaningless. They do carry symbolic ties to Alessa. The twin filler at the mall reflects her fear of insects, but also symbolizes the god growing inside her womb. Later, we face its evolved form, the Flow Stinger, which, according to the wiki, represents her transition from child to powerful figure. But considering how Alessa's childhood was stolen by her mother's twisted plans, that reading feels off. To me, both forms feel more like embodiments of growing god inside her, and maybe the true answer comes not from them or the other bosses like the Splithead, the fight that lets us finally escape the other world. And that fight is the best one in the game, because it begins before the actual battle starts. First, there's a book in the library telling the hunter's tale, something that at first feels random, but later clicks into place if you are paying attention. The game rewards curiosity here, whispering, "Keep looking, the clues are out there if you want to survive." When the battle begins, the symbolism meets mechanisms perfectly. Shoot a few pistol rounds to weaken it, wait for the jaw-splitting rush, then blast a shotgun shell right into his open mouth before it can finish you off. Simple. Very elegant, symbolic. It's one of the best fights in the entire series, a glimpse of the potential that sadly isn't carried throughout the rest of the game. A promise that maybe, just maybe, a remake could finally fulfill. When I play Silent Hill, I'm not here for the tied combat systems. I play for the story, for the mystery, for symbolism. When the combat actually ties into those elements, it works. It isn't just padding or a training following boss fight. It becomes part of the game's thematic core. Silent Hill was never about good combat, and honestly, only the Silent Hill 2 remake came close to offering a system that felt rewarding, though it ended up overused. Seeing the new Silent Hill trailers just raised more questions. Should combat stick with that approach, or should it move towards something more haunting and indirect, like Clock Tower or Photo Frame?
I don't know, but I do know this. After killing Splithead, Harry emerges from the other world, only to be confronted by Alessa, before she vanishes again, leaving him a key to continue his journey.
So, night has fallen already.
Standing atop the church spire, gazing down upon the town as if in judgment, Dahlia Gillespie muttered softly.
Darkness spills over the earth, like black tears from heaven.
The night wind filled with pain made her veil flutter. The pure white veil covering her head was a symbol of her devotion to God, a humble servant of the Lord. Though faithful as she had been to her God after so many long years, the road was not easy. Dahlia had continued to worship her God tirelessly, and during many long years of humiliation, her faith remained as pure as a virgin's. Just a little longer, and the time for her to be rewarded would finally come. The world would enter in a shiny new era. People would bow down to a new God, and she would be enveloped in radiant glory. Those who had looked down on her, despised her, and belittled her would be cast into hell by righteous judgment, and they would suffer eternal torment. The church bells echo in the distance like an invitation Harry can't ignore. If everything is endured, any clue about his daughter feels worth chasing. This moment in the game always strikes me as strangely soothing, though I know it shouldn't. Why do I feel relieved returning to a place once crawling with monsters? I'm not sure, but there's a fleeting sense of calm stepping back into the non-empty school. Of course, this still isn't reality. The fog is waiting for us, but for one brief heartbeat, it no longer feels suffocating. It's one of a few truly quiet moments in the entire game. Silent Hill, despite its foreboding and danger, occasionally offers these little pockets of reflection. If you pause and let the silence settle, the town loneliness feels almost comforting. A melancholy peace that invites you to stop, breathe, and simply exist for a moment. Following the hollow peal of the church bells, Harry makes his way to the Balcom Church. Inside, at last, he encounters another living person, someone to talk to after so long wandering alone. Yet, almost immediately, something feels wrong. Dahlia Gillespie stands before him, barefoot, shrouded in a white veil, dressed like a forest witch pulled straight from a dark fairy tale. Her words are tangled in mysticism, half religious, half nonsensical. Somehow she already knows Harry's name. More unsettling still, she knows about Cheryl. Harry presses her for answers, but she deflects every question. Before leaving, Dahlia places a pyramid-shaped object on the altar called Floros and cryptically urges him towards the hospital. It's an unease moment. Up until now, the town and its nightmares have guided Harry only indirectly, by circumstance or accident. Now, a stranger is given explicit directions and the shift feels very suspicious. Her riddling language hints that something far larger and more sinister hides beneath the town's fog. Silent Hill loves to make you feel profoundly alone. The sense of melancholy and solitude is also an essential part of its atmosphere. Across the entire journey, Harry meets only a handful of people, and every encounter feels deliberate. Fleeting sparks of humanity inside the world intended of swallowing him whole. That becomes especially clear when he reaches Alchemilla Hospital. After a sudden gunshot echoes through the empty lobby, he meets Dr. Michael Kaufman, the hospital director of medical staff. Kaufman immediately feels different from Dahlia's cryptic rambling. He seems more grounded, almost normal. He tells Harry he had simply gone to the staff room for a nap and woke up trapped in this nightmare, just as Harry did after the car crash. Kaufman also confirms that he sees the same monsters prowling the streets and the snow falling over the fog-shrouded town. This detail stands out later when Harry reunites with Sybil at the antique shop and tries to explain the otherworld. Sybil acknowledged the monsters. Her early trust in Harry is proof enough, handling him a gun the moment she realizes he's unarmed. In the Silent Hill play novel, we even see her directly fight a creature called Groaner. Yet, when Harry's described the shifting nightmare dimension, Sybil hesitates, confused, and reluctant to accept what he's saying. This subtle contrast is very important. Silent Hill rarely delivers exposition outright. Instead, it lets small fragments of dialogue hint at bigger truths. Why does Sybil initially fail to perceive the otherworld while Kaufman clearly sees most of the same horrors as Harry? Does this mean Dahlia also experiences Harry's reality, or is she operating on yet another layer of perception? The question deepens once Harry meets Lisa Garland, a nurse he finds in Alchemilla. She clings to him immediately, frightened but oddly relieved. Her memory is fractured, only scraps remain, and she struggles to make sense of the nightmare. Curiously, Lisa seems tethered to the hospital's otherworld. Harry only encounters her inside this shifting dimension, and he frequently wakes up alone, as if she were never truly there, like a dream that you just had but you can't quite remember. Is Lisa real, or a manifestation born from Alessa's memories? Through these few vivid encounters, Silent Hill sketches archetypes without even naming them outright. Sybil becomes the rational protector, a cop offering safety and fragile sense of order. Dahlia stands as a riddle-speaking crone, a trickster cloaked in mysticism, always nudging Harry towards uncertain ends. Kaufman embodies ambiguity, polished and calculating, grateful yet distant, concealing motives beneath his immaculate suit. And Lisa emerges as the nurturing caretaker, but also the fragile bridge between waking reality and nightmare, her identity dissolving the longer she lingers. Each of them leaves just enough truth and just enough doubt to keep us questioning what is real and what the town itself is inventing.
Lisa becomes the first real key to understanding Silent Hill blur line between dream and reality. It's no accident that we met her in Alchemilla Hospital, a place that initially seems ordinary but quickly reveals how the game's dream logic begins to deceive and disorient Harry.
The hospital becomes a pivotal section of the game when discussing the town's central mystery. Alchemilla Hospital is no sanctuary, it's a place of deception. An endless corridor of doors that seem less like rooms and more like portals to shifting realities. Nothing here feels trustworthy. Every space invites caution and suspicion, and even the monsters carry a disturbing familiarity. Their silhouettes eerily human, much like the grey children we faced in Midwich School.
Please.
Harry said in a low voice, aiming his gun at the nurse.
I don't want to have to shoot you. You're just being possessed by a monster. Please, if there's any part of you in there that can still hear me, just don't get in my way. Please, move aside.
The nurse's pace quickened as she charged at Harry with her clumsy sprint. Harry's finger on the trigger hesitated. If he aimed at the parasite hump-like thing on her back, he might be able to save her without killing her. As the nurse rushed at him, swinging her scalp, Harry still couldn't shake his hesitation and only managed to dodge her attacks. He barely escaped, but the impact sent him flying sideways into the wall. The nurse, perhaps pushed by the wave on her back, continued her forward momentum, staggering before turning back toward Harry. Harry crouched on the floor, groaning, struggling to lift the gun with his right arm, which had been injured when he hit the wall. A thought occurred to him. Could it be that the nurse wasn't human after all? If there were creatures loose in this town that could control people, wouldn't he have seen possessed patients by now? Nothing is quite what it seems. Kaufman appears to be just another stranded citizen, yet he shows little shock and no real desire to help Harry. Something is undeniably off. A subtle clue surfaces in his office, where Harry discovers the remains of a shattered vial. Its strange red liquid splattered across the floor. If you previously explored the kitchen, you can pick up an empty plastic bottle to collect what is left of the substance. What might seem like a minor puzzle element is, in reality, a key to something far larger than we can yet understand. The hospital is pure madness, a descent masquerading as progress. Harry must reach the basement to restore power, enabling an elevator that lists only floors 1 through 3, plus the basement. Yet, as you come through each level, every door seems locked, an endless loop of dead ends. Returning to the elevator, you notice something impossible. A 4th floor has appeared. Pressing the button becomes an unspoken invitation back into the other world. In Japanese culture, the number 4 is tied to death, an ominous association that feels perfectly at home in Alchemilla Hospital. The familiar shift unfolds, rusty bloody stained walls, grated metal floors suspended over bottomless darkness. Akira's Yamaoka industrial clatter swells, sometimes deafening, as each new room ratchets up the unease. The enemies here, nurses and doctors armed with scalpels and surgical knives, move with unsettling purpose, slashing relentlessly if you hesitate. Fortunately, melee combat proves unexpectedly effective, and once you retrieve the sledgehammer from the Otherworld's basement, it's hammer time, baby. For reasons we only begin to grasp, the Hospital Otherworlds carries a different atmosphere than the schools. If you are sharing a similar design, here the tone is harsher. Blood smeared across the walls, the air tinted in a deeper red, as if the building itself is wounded. It whispers of violence, of something unspeakably dark that once unfolded in these corridors. Where the school hinted at lasted suffering and bullying, the hospital feels like the aftermath, a scar where the pain has already erupted. To progress, Harry must collect 4 plates, a motif that echoes again. The number 4 returns, leading with its Japanese connotation of death. Each plate bears a name of characters from Lewis Carroll's Alice Adventures in Wonderland. The plate of Cat, Turtle, Hatter, and Queen. Alice's shadow lingers over Silent Hill's story once again, her surreal descent reflecting Harry's own spiral into madness. Once the plates are placed and the sealed door finally opens, a shelf conceals a hidden passage. It feels deliberate, as though something or someone wants Harry to see what lies beyond. Yet with each step, his reality frays further. Monsters emerge, some barely recognizable as such, blurring the line between nightmare and delusion. Harry seems exhausted, frayed by the endless trial. Is he being led, manipulated? Could this all be for nothing? An endless purgatory while his body lies inert in some unseen hospital bed. Perhaps it is already over, and Silent Hill is only the echo of a dying mind. Instead of boldly entering, thinking this must be where Cheryl was being held, Harry hesitated. His spirit had weakened. The lingering feeling from killing the nurse hadn't dissipated, and the fear he felt when encountering a monster in the school basement resurfaced. He sat down in the front door, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes. It was likely already midday, and he hadn't slept in over 24 hours. Overcome by drowsiness and fatigue, he sought refuge and sleep.
Daddy?
Cheryl snuggled up to Harry's lap as he sat in the club chair.
Are you sleepy?
The 3-year-old girl looked up worriedly at her father, who had his eyes closed with a hand on his forehead. Harry was engulfed in sorrow from losing his beloved wife, Jodie. Memories of her occupy his every thought, and only hers fill his heart, but they didn't comfort him, even the wonderful ones with her gentle smile. Something that should have given him comfort, but instead, they only sought to deepen his grief.
Hey, Daddy.
His daughter shook his lap earnestly.
Daddy, please be okay. I don't want you to go away too. Please. Don't leave me all alone.
Her pleading voice reached the bottom of Harry's heart, and he slowly opened his heavy eyelids. Cheryl was crying. She was biting her lip, her small body trembling. This child, even though she was only 3, she knew the sorrows of death and was terrified of losing her father as well. This feeling left Harry struck, as if Jody had slapped him across the face. You are her father. She needs you. How long are you going to mop around like this? He lifted his daughter and hugged her tightly.
I'm sorry, Cheryl. Daddy was careless lately. I was so caught up in the past that I forgot what's truly important right in front of me.
His most precious treasure. It was something that needed his full attention. He needed to love her, hold her, make her happy, and live with her. Harry woke up. He seemed to have fallen asleep on the dusty floor where things were scattered around. His eyes were teary. He had cried in his dream about Cheryl.
Harry heaves a heavy shelf aside, revealing a secret passage. One that leads him straight into the hospital's most horrifying secret.
During 2006, Konami published a comic release exclusively for Japanese cell phones called Cage of Cradle. This short story follows Lisa Garland and her boyfriend, giving us a glimpse into her past. Lisa was born and raised in Silent Hill. She attended Midwich Elementary and developed a love for theater, plays, and cinema, dreaming one day becoming an actress. But her parents weren't supportive, pressuring to continue the family tradition. Her grandmother and mother were both nurses. Lisa abandoned her dream and forcefully followed the medical path instead. Eventually, she began working at Alchemilla Hospital as a trainee under none other than Dr. Michael Kaufman. We already know Kaufman isn't trustworthy. From the way he spoke to Harry to his eagerness to leave the town as quickly as possible, something about him felt off. And indeed it was. Kaufman was directly involved in the distribution of a drug called PTV, something Harry later learns while searching the police station, where he finds a notice board that reads, "Product only available in selected areas of Silent Hill. Raw material is White Claudia. Blend peculiar to the region. Manufactured here, dealer equals manufactured." While Claudia is a perennial herb, its seeds refine into the drug PTV, an illicit hallucinogen produced by the Order and distributed mainly to the town's tourists and used in the Order's rituals since ancient times. Kaufman, as a member of the cult, oversaw this distribution. Even worse, he forced his staff, including Lisa, to consume PTV, leading her into addiction. This was Kaufman's insurance, a cruel plan to keep Lisa dependent and silent, ensuring she never exposed the truth about what is happening inside Alchemilla. And that truth begins to unravel when Harry pushes past the hospital's hidden shelf and discovers the secret basement. Lisa warns him about it beforehand.
We're under strict orders never to enter the basement storeroom. So I really don't know.
Orders designed not to protect staff, but to conceal something or someone. As Harry ventures deeper into the forbidden corridors, he eventually finds a nursing room, recently used, still cluttered with medical equipment, beds and vials of medicine. On top of one of the machines rests a golden key, and beside it, a framed photograph of Alessa Gillespie. The girl who made Harry swerve his jeep on that foggy night, the girl bullied at Midwich, the girl lurking in the shadows of this nightmare. Alessa had been here. She was the patient kept in this hidden ward. But why? How? Each time Harry encountered her, she never looked hurt, always appearing like any ordinary girl.
For the first time, the game points us toward a large truth. Silent Hill's madness is no longer abstract. It's tied to Alessa, to Kaufman, and to something far, far bigger hidden beneath the surface. Yet, every answer only breeds more questions. The puzzle isn't solved. The next piece lies in the Order.
Skin is up. Even when I just started. Why? In that time? There's wonder. That's how it's done.
The Order, an organization, a cult, a doomsday cult rooted in Silent Hill, Maine, though its reach eventually spread to other places, but for the purpose of this video, we'll stay focused on its role here. The Order is a strict, authoritarian cult where disobedience is met with the harshness, most brutal punishments. Its followers cling to faith and loyalty in their God, not unlike the devotion we still see today in modern religions such as Christianity. Long before the Order took shape, Silent Hill's land was home to Native Americans. In the 16th century, after English colonists began spreading across North America, many natives found refuge in the area that would later be called Silent Hill, at that time known as the Place of Silenced Spirits. They believed the land was sacred, imbued with spiritual power. But their peace didn't last. The settlers drove them out, seizing the land without understanding its hidden power. One settler, Jennifer Carroll, began studying the land's strange properties. Her writings and beliefs eventually laid the foundation for what became the Order. But in driving away the natives, the settlers had already corrupted the land. Their presence poisoned it, leaving it barren and cursed. Something darker than they could comprehend had already begun to take root. There is a passage in Silent Hill's Ancient Gods, a study of their etymology and evolution, that reads, "When this religion fell into the hands of immigrants, it was deeply influenced by their own original Christian beliefs." By the early 19,000s, Silent Hill was transforming into a tourist destination. At the same time, the Order formally organized itself, though its presence was despised by much of the town. Forced underground, the cult operated in secrecy, yet, over the decades, it slowly grew stronger, embedding itself in the town's institutions and quietly gathering power. The Order's ultimate goal is to bring their God into the physical world, believing that its arrival will cleanse humanity of suffering and usher in their version of paradise. But Dahlia Gillespie, one of the cult's highest-ranking priests, had her own ambitions. Unlike the Order's repeated failed attempts, Dahlia wanted to succeed alone, ensuring that the power of God would belong only to her. The method was horrific. The Order abducted young women, using them as surrogate mothers in rituals meant to birth their god. This explains many of the mysterious disappearances around the town, and also why we found a photo of Alessa beside a hospital bed. Alessa was Dahlia's daughter. At first, Dahlia imagined Alessa would follow in her footsteps, becoming a spiritual medium, but as her obsession with the birth of God consumed her, Dahlia decided her own child would serve as the vessel. She attempted the ritual in the basement of her home rather than in the cult's traditional ceremonial site, believing Alessa's unique power as a surrogate would guarantee success. It was a catastrophic failure, and according to the Koshiki Guide, the ritual process involved a great deal of fire, which consequently escalated into conflagration. Incidentally, there is information in the game about 6 houses that burned down in the business district, but the actual site of the fire can be located on the business district map. It seems the houses were completely torn down during those 7 years. The fire engulfed Alessa, burning her alive, but just before the ritual completed, she managed to split her soul in two, disrupting the process. The attempt failed, yet the result was even more horrific. Alessa survived, kept alive not by her own will but by the gods festering inside her. She could not die. Her pain and suffering became endless. The storm and bleed into the world around her, the imagery of the other world, bodies bound in bandages, charred flesh, figures writing on walls, are reflections of Alessa's agony. Even the split-head boss echoes her trauma, staged in a boiler room where a burned body lies at its center. The ritual did not bring God into existence. Instead, it gave birth to something else entirely, Alessa's nightmare.
Still has an unusually high fever. Eyes don't open. Getting a pulse, but just barely breathing. Her skin is all charred. Even when I change the bandages, the blood and pus just start oozing through. Why? What is keeping that child alive? I can't stand it any longer. I won't tell a soul. Promise. So please.
After the catastrophic ritual failure, Alessa was taken to Alchemilla Hospital, where she was placed under the exclusive care of Lisa Garland. For 7 long years, Lisa tended to Alessa, day after day, while the task slowly eroded her body, her mind, and her spirit. She was trapped between hospital orders, Alessa's unnatural immortality, and her own growing dependence on PTV. Dr. Kaufman exploited that weakness by threatening to expose her addiction. He ensured Lisa remained a puppet of the order. Over time, the constant use of the drug began to unravel her perception of reality. Hallucinations tormented her, insects crawling across walls, black fluid pouring from faucets, images that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Her boyfriend, Matthew, worried about the woman he loved, came to Silent Hill in a desperate attempt to rescue her. But as fate would have it, his arrival coincided with the moment Dahlia completed her ritual to capture Alessa's other half, plunging the entire town into the nightmare world. Matthew still tried to save Lisa, but his efforts ended in tragedy. He was slain by Valtiel, the attendant of God, a monstrous servant of the Order whose sole duty was to oversee and protect the god's rebirth. Consumed by grief and rage, Lisa lashed out. She tried to strangle Valtiel to take revenge for Matthew's death, but it was all futile. The attendant of God crushed her resistance, killing her and condemning her soul to forever wander the cursed town of Silent Hill.
Every time we meet Lisa, it isn't really her. It's her soul, lost inside Alessa's nightmare. That's why her memories are so blurry, why she struggles to recall the town, the hospital, even herself. Lisa is my favorite character in the first game. Like Sybil, she shows genuine care for Harry, but unlike the others, she feels like an innocent soul trapped in a cruel web. Not only undone by her family's selfish ambitions, but by the sadistic, alienated goals of the Order. Lisa dreamed about being an actress, telling stories on stage or on a big screen. Instead, the story she received was one of tragedy. A cold, unfair tale that ended far too soon.
Lisa.
Stay by me, Harry. Please. I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry?
Jody.
He had met her in the fall of his sophomore year of college. Word had spread that she had just broken up with her high school boyfriend, and Harry had mustered every ounce of courage he had to approach her. It wasn't the most noble move, taking advantage of her heartbreak, but he poured all his passion into comforting her. And it worked. He spent a night with her that he only dreamed about before. In truth, he didn't know about her since high school. They hadn't been in the same class, but they attended the same school, and he did admire her from afar, too shy to ask her to dance because she already had a boyfriend. Finally, he had his chance at happiness. Didn't even wait to graduate before they married in a small church ceremony. For 9 years, every day felt like a honeymoon. Even during the early, tough days when he quits his job to become a freelancer non-fiction writer, and they struggled to make ends meet, she had supported him with unwavering kindness. He had wanted to build a perfect marriage, and eventually, a perfect family. But sadly, they were never blessed with children. Up until now, the game has followed an invisible blueprint, one that Harry walks without even realizing it. Each time he enters a location, he eventually crosses into the other world. After key events, he returns to the foggy streets once more. Yet something else lingers in this rhythm. Dahlia Gillespie, the old woman we first met in the Balkan church, handed us the florals, then point us towards our next destination, seemingly wanting to help Harry in his search for Cheryl. But there's a subtle sense that her guidance isn't the only force at play. The fleeting visions of Cheryl, the crayon scribbles scattered across the town, the fairy tale books. These feel like another hand leading Harry forward, perhaps even against Dahlia's plans.
I've been expecting you. It was foretold by gyromancy.
What are you talking about?
One of Silent Hill's most haunting themes is the loss of self. Lisa, who never got the chance to follow her dream of becoming an actress, is one example, but Alessa's tragedy is even greater. Raised by a mother who cared more about the Order's dogma than her own child, Alessa was denied even the simplest pieces of a normal life. We don't know anything about her father, which makes it feel as though she grew up completely alone. Her childhood was stolen, religion was forced upon her, and her free will was taken before she was even old enough to speak.
I connect with that part of her story in some way. I grew up in a very religious family, pressured to follow a path that had been laid out for me long before I was born. I was forced into baptism, forced into a belief system before I could form my own words, my own choices. For Alessa, that forced ritual became an eternity of suffering. In desperation, she chose to split her soul, so that at least a part of her could escape and live the life she never had. A fragment of hope became Harry's daughter, Cheryl.
Despite his ineptitude, Harry managed one important task, bringing Cheryl to the town. For that, Dahlia could afford him a small measure of praise. It was her sorcery that had influenced Cheryl's desire to come to Silent Hill. But Harry had been the one carrying out the task. Thanks to him, they have finally taken a step forward. After 7 long years of stagnation, the dawn of a new world was almost upon them. As soon as Harry arrived in Silent Hill, Cheryl had already been reunited with Alessa. Though Harry caught glimpses of his daughter throughout the journey, the visions gradually shifted. Cheryl's image dissolving to Alessa's, showing that they two were becoming one again. While Dahlia's struggle was to bring about the birth of God, Alessa was using her remaining power to resist. Across the town, she placed protective seals in 5 locations: the school, the hospital, the antique shop, the lighthouse, and the amusement park. These were the seals of Metatron, bursting at Midwich, Elementary's otherworld, just after Harry passed through the clock tower. Alessa's intent was to complete the symbols and prevent the ritual by ending both her own life and the life of the god growing inside her. But Dahlia deceived Harry, convincing him that the seals were meant to bring death and destruction to the town. According to the Koshik Guide, it's possible the Seal of Metatron could hold such power, but it's far from certain, leaving us with a mystery. Did Alessa truly know what the Seal of Metatron would do? Was she aware it might have the power to destroy everything? Or did she believe it was the only way to end her suffering, even if it meant sparing others in the process? However, as it is questionable whether the Seal of Metatron actually has this sort of power, there is also the possibility that Alessa, using knowledge she acquired when she was very young, bred herself from the effects of the malevolent god's power through autosuggestion and was attempting to realize her own death. Alessa's power was growing stronger. With each step forward, her dream became stranger, and both realities started to collapse into one. Harry was being pulled deeper and deeper into the other world, most often leading him back to Lisa at the hospital. By this point, there were no more leads, no more threads of hope. The only thing carrying Harry forward was his love for his daughter, the stubborn belief that somehow, by some miracle, she was still alive, a father falling further and further down a spiral of an unknown nightmare that never seemed to solidify into anything concrete. Harry wondered, narrowing his eyes, a caterpillar with a stinger. How bold. He remained cautious but unafraid. After all, he had his trusty hunting rifle by his side, and the hope of finally reaching the lake, and his daughter, Cheryl. filled him with much determination. This thing was nothing more than a roadside obstacle, a mere pebble standing in his way. For me, the novel was essential in making Harry's arc feel more powerful. Here, he isn't just a blank protagonist, he's a freelance writer who lost his wife shortly after finding Cheryl abandoned. He raised her basically alone, working endless hours just to scrape by, sacrificing time for himself and, thankfully, time with his daughter. That guilt weighed on him. He knew Cheryl was all he had left, but he could never give her enough of himself. And the first and only moment Harry truly allows himself to show fragility, to show a deeper affection for Cheryl, comes right near the end of the game when he encounters Sybil for the last time. After the town was engulfed in darkness, fully consumed by the other world, Harry finds himself on a boat with Sybil and Dahlia. Dahlia explains there are only 2 seals left, one at the lighthouse, the other at the amusement park. They decided to split up, Sybil heading towards the park while Harry makes his way to the lighthouse. There, he finds another seal, but also, for the first time in what feels like forever, he sees a glimpse of what looks like his daughter.
Wait! Damn, I was too late.
The girl's gaze returned to him in silence, her eyes a clear, innocent blue. There was no hint of malice or malevolence, only a deep sorrow that tugged at Harry's heart. Her face bore a striking resemblance to Cheryl, and the realization struck him, clouding his judgment. In just a matter of years, Cheryl could very well grow to look just like this girl, a thought that pierced through him.
Hey, are you...
Harry lowered his gun, his voice faltering. The words,
"Are you the demon?"
struck in his throat. Before he could finish, the girl's figure began to fade, dissolving into the surrounding darkness.
Wait!
Harry cried, reaching out, but his hands grasped only empty air. A single droplet of something wet hit his shoulder, and then a sharp pain stung the back of his neck. But he fails to reach her, and when Harry returns to the amusement park, he finds Sybil. Only now she's possessed, puppeted by the same parasite that turned the hospital staff into monsters. Unless you happen to remember the mysterious red liquid from your very first visit to Alchemilla Hospital, chances are your first playthrough ends with Harry killing Sybil. At the same moment, far away, Sybil was searching through the amusement park. As she passed beneath the towering Ferry wheel, she felt a sudden, sharp sensation on her back, like a bite of a mountain viper. For a brief moment, Sybil recalled a documentary she once seen on TV, but that was just a fleeting thought. She had no personal experience with snake bites, and there certainly weren't any vipers in the northern part of the United States. Far from the jungles of South America, something unsettling was spreading across her back. She reached frantically with both hands, trying to grab whatever it was, but she couldn't reach. What began as a ticklish sensation quickly morphed into an intense itch, then a burning pain before finally fading into numbness, as if her body had been injected with anesthetic. Sybil's consciousness began to drift away into darkness. It's devastating because if you save her, you unlock one of the most intense and moving moments in Harry's story. For the first time, he lowers his gun, sets aside his survival instincts, and we learn the full truth about Cheryl being adopted. By the tone of his voice, you can hear it clearly. You don't need to share blood to love someone as your own child. It's the perfect contrast. Alessa's stolen childhood set against Cheryl's, where love came from someone who owned her nothing, someone from a different world, someone who chose her. The fear of blood tends to create the fear for the flesh, but love from other blood tends to create hope for the flesh. He remembered her cheerful smile from the first time they met, a beautiful, comforting woman. Yet now, Harry not being a priest couldn't save her soul. Not even putting her to rest with a bullet would make any difference. His powerless, fear turned towards Dahlia Gillespie. He couldn't resist the urge to unleash his anger on her. Dahlia had warranted his wrath. He had been completely deceived. Dahlia was never guiding Harry to save his daughter, she was manipulating him. Every step, every seal was a part of her scheme to track Alessa down and use the florist to strip away her powers. And in the amusement park, Harry unknowingly delivered the final blow, weakening Alessa's just as Dahlia intended. Her powers was growing stronger. That's why Dahlia was using Harry, turning him against Alessa, which in theory was also a part of his own daughter.
Where's Cheryl? Give me back my daughter.
We meet at last, Alessa.
Dahlia Gillespie? Where's Cheryl? Where is she?
Here's where Silent Hill's story branches depending on the choices you've made. For this video, I'll be focusing on the good plus ending, the one where we save Kaufman so he can use the red vial to stop the god's birth. The same vial we saw shatter in his office. Aglaophotis, a quiet piece of foreshadowing for Kaufman's revenge on Dahlia. Kaufman, the hospital director, also has worked with the Order, but he never truly bought into the black magic. To him, they were just a convenient partner in his drug trafficking business. He didn't care about the rituals of their god, as long as he stayed on top. Still, Kaufman wasn't naive. He went to great lengths to secretly secure an Aglaophotis vial, a safeguard he hoped he'd never need until he did. Kaufman is a realistic by nature, who does not believe in things like spells and black magic, but he accepted the responsibility of caring for Alessa so that the White Claw exchange would continue to take place in his favor. However, being a first-hand witness to the deaths of the mayor and a narcotics officer, both of which were brought about by means of the magic realm from the embryonic malevolent god's power. Since he came to the decision that if magic was something he could use, he would take advantage of it. Incidentally, the mysterious deaths of a development group that Lisa mentions during her conversation with Harry is a kind of urban legend, so whether or not that sort of thing actually happened isn't certain. To unlock the good plus ending, you also need to save Sybil by using the same liquid during her boss fight. If you manage both, then in the final scene, Sybil joins Harry, holding Dahlia at gunpoint in the boss arena. There, two bodies wait. Alessa's burned body, slumped in a wheelchair, and Alessa's child form, Cheryl. Two halves of the same soul, finally ready to merge so that God can be born. As the souls fuse together, they form a radiant, angelic figure, dressed in white, pure, a striking contrast to the horrors we faced to this point. This form, called the incubator, is Alessa's own mental image of God, once again symbolizing the innocence she never had. But just as the incubator appears, Kaufman strikes. He throws the Aglaophotis vial at her and shoots Dahlia in the chest. The vial doesn't kill Alessa. Instead, he forces the god within her womb to break free, unleashed violently by the Aglaophotis effect. Like most fights in the game, this one is no different. Shoot until it dies, unload every weapon you got, because this is it. The final boss, the last enemy, the ultimate confrontation. By now, Harry has lost his daughter, being manipulated and pushed around, forced to play by rules he never understood. He's been thrown into a nightmare that demanded survival, that demanded he fight through horrors just to cling to the only thing that mattered in his life, saving his daughter. Harry knew there was no way out. He gripped his rifle tightly. If defeating the demon was the only way to save Cheryl, then so be it. Even if it cost his life, he would see this through. Harry did the impossible. He killed God. An ordinary man stood against obliteration itself and won. After the incubus falls, Alessa's angelic form appears once more. This time, she places a newborn in Harry's arms. After everything he's endured, everything he's done for Alessa, for Cheryl, she recognizes his love as genuine and pure. Harry sacrificed everything, walked through hell itself just to save his daughter, and in return, Alessa entrusts him with her reincarnation, Heather. With the last of her strength, Alessa ensures that Harry, Sybil, and the newborn can escape safely back to their world. Kaufman, however, isn't given that mercy. Lisa finally claims her revenge. Harry vowed silently to Cheryl's memory.
I will create the home that she deserved.
With that promise, he ran down the center line of the street towards the future that awaited them.
Maybe someday someone might take notice. Until then, I will write down all the things that have happened here.
I've always loved the first Silent Hill game, but I never truly explored its lore, its intricacies and themes that shape the story as a whole. It's more than an insanely good psychological horror game. It's a story about fear, love, and trauma. This game is a combination of a team, passionate, talented developers who didn't just love horror, they respect it. They weren't chasing trends or trying to cash in on survival horror. They wanted to tell a story, and that story has become a phenomenon. Discussed across forums, interviews, articles, and countless video essays. This video is just one more drop in the vast sea of fans, and I'm glad I finally took the time to digest in its entirety. It was grotesque, fearless, eerie, terrifying, and amid all the horror, there was beauty. The sliver of hope and the madness. Yeah. In the end, Silent Hill goes beyond the horror after all.